Well, believe it or not, the Golden Globe nominations are coming up, and us TV nuts are trying to figure out who's going to get nominated, who's going to get snubbed, and ultimately who's going to win. I'm Gold Derby editor Zach Laws, and joining me now are fellow editors Daniel Montgomery and Marcus Dixon. Let me first start off by asking this. Los Angeles Film Critics Best Picture Award winner, Small Axe. It's contending here on the TV side. Daniel, does it have a shot at winning limited series, or is there something else that has a better chance of beating it?
I think it's right now looks like a two-way race to me. I have Small Axe winning. I think it has such great snob appeal for the Globes. Like it's cinema. That's why the Los Angeles film critics awarded it Best Picture, even though it's not a traditional film. It's a collection of five films or short films between 60 minutes and one is 2 hours long, around kind of the Caribbean diaspora in England. It's Steve McQueen, who won Best Picture Drama for 12 Years a Slave. I mean, it has so much of that kind of boutique TV appeal that I think they're going to go for. I think the show that challenges it, and it's a very strong challenger because it's such a big water cooler hit, is The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, which is probably the most talked about series of the fall. It was like the Tiger King of the fall, except also has snob appeal because it's about chess. It's a period piece. It's lavishly designed. It has a lead actress performance that I think is going to do well. We'll talk about that in the acting categories. But I think it for the win. I think it's between those two.
Marcus, what do you think? I mean, is it just between those two? First of all, what are you predicting is going to win? And is there something that we're not talking about that could upset either of these two?
I recently, because of all the buzz Daniel just mentioned, I put The Queen's Gambit in number one, and I put the actress number one. Spoiler alert for when we talk later. But it did have all of that water cooler discussion going on. Everyone on my Facebook feed, people that don't even watch TV, were saying, OMG, have you seen The Queen's Gambit? And the fact that it is about chess makes it this weirdly unique series that was actually riveting. You could not look away. It was the perfect length. It wasn't too long. It wasn't too short. And so I have that winning. Small Axe was not on my radar, to be honest, until the LA critics gave it the win. And then all of a sudden I put it in my predictions and I put a couple of the supporting actors in. But the ones we're not talking about, Mrs. America, I mean, it feels like old news at this point, but it is the one. No, I have two shows that were eligible for the Emmys getting in: Mrs. America and Unorthodox. Unorthodox, of course, won directing at the Emmys. Mrs. America won supporting actress for Uzo Aduba. So I think those are safe bets. And then the other three I have are newer shows: Queen's Gambit, The Undoing, and Small Axe.
I'm having such a hard time. So I have Small Axe predicted to win right now, but I can also see it very easily being The Queen's Gambit for all the reasons you just said, Marcus. I'm also predicting Small Axe for all the reasons that Daniel just said. Like, both of these shows have got real snob appeal, and both of them were big water cooler shows, respectively. Small Axe has the benefit of this kind of this pristine sheen over it because of not just the LA film critics, but all of these different film critics rewarding different aspects of the show, including John Boyega and Letitia Wright, both of whom I think are in contention to get nominated over in supporting, spoiler alert, and even possibly win. You had even Barack Obama put Lovers Rock, one of the Small Axe films, as one of his favorite films of the year, which a lot of other critics have been doing as well. But then you get into this interesting kind of conversation about, well, are they looking at this as the best limited series of the year, or are they looking at this as the best film of the year or a collection of films. Like it's this weird thing. And then so it makes you wonder, does that give the advantage to something like The Queen's Gambit, which is much more of a traditional limited series, right? It's got a 6-episode arc from beginning to end.
Yeah.
There are different connections and small acts within each of the individual films, but it's not like The Queen's Gambit, right? Which is much more of what we would necessarily think of as a limited series. So I do kind of wonder if that's going to give it an advantage. In terms of what's getting nominated, I don't know about you guys, but I have changed my predicted. It's basically like small acts in The Queen's Gambit, and then the next 3, I have no idea what to put in.
It's criminal that we only have to pick 5 this year in particular. I mean, some of the ones we haven't mentioned, Normal People, I May Destroy You, The Good Lord Bird, Little Fires Everywhere, The Comey Rule, Fargo, Hollywood, Bad Education. Yes, movies are eligible here too. Haunting of Bly Manor, like any of those, like you could pick 5 from any of those and say, okay, those are the nominees.
I actually have The Good Lord Bird in my top 5. I think they like Showtime last year. Russell Crowe won for The Loudest Voice, and I think The Good Lord Bird could be kind of like that Showtime pick. Also, like Escape at Dannemora, its big coming out party on the award scene was the Golden Globes. So I think Good Lord Bird gets in, and I've got rounding out my top 5, Unorthodox and The Undoing. Unorthodox is the only one nominee I have in here that was up for the Emmys, and it just feels like Watchmen took so much of the air out of the room at the Emmys from all of these other kind of films and limited series, that there's no real bandwagon for them to jump on, because Watchmen was eligible for last year's Golden Globes and was snubbed. So it's like ship has sailed on that one. So I feel like they're just gonna move on for the most part. Like I don't see Mrs. America getting in, although I think Cate Blanchett probably still gets in. I don't know about Normal People could do it because it still has that kind of cool factor, and I do have Paul Mescal getting in for that. I May Destroy You has a very strong chance. I have Michaela Cole getting in for that. So yeah, there are a lot of contenders here. Narrowing it down is difficult, but I do think we're going to see more new than old in terms of what was eligible at the Emmys versus what's going to do well here.
One show you didn't mention, Marcus, is I Know This Much Is True, and what's so interesting about that for me is that Mark Ruffalo won the Emmy. Yeah. And he was the show's only nomination. And now he's predicted to win the Golden Globe. And I don't think the show is ranked so far down in our overall odds. And so
that confuses me because I loved the show.
Yeah.
It was one of my top 10, 15 of the whole year. And when it did not get in at the Emmys for series, I was a little bit sad. And so I think I moved off of Mark Ruffalo. I think I ended up copying you, Zach, and predicting Paul Mescal. And so when Mark Ruffalo won at the Emmys, I'm like, well, yeah, that's the right pick. That's the one I wanted to pick, but I was too, scared to pick him because his show wasn't up. But this time around, I could see him winning when we get to that discussion, and even though his show's not up there.
You also mentioned Hollywood, and that was a show that, by a lot of measures, underperformed at the Emmys. It got a ton of nominations, got a ton of acting nominations, but it didn't get in for series. And we know that the Golden Globes are often more open to Ryan Murphy productions, even when the Emmys aren't. They nominated The Politician in comedy series last year, and that was pretty much overlooked across the board at the Emmys. So I kind of wonder if that could be a bigger Golden Globes contender, because right now, I mean, it's ranked pretty low in our odds because it failed to get nominated at the Emmys. But like, could they just do this weird thing where they overlook the Mrs. Americas and the Unorthodoxes and then go for Hollywood as like the older show? Like, I don't know. I mean, there's so many weird possibilities.
Yeah. They don't really love American politics, which is why Mrs. America, if you're not predicting it, you may be smarter than me because I am predicting it. Maybe Hollywood does get the reprieve here. I loved Hollywood. I know a lot of people were mixed on it, but it was one of my favorites.
I think, we can, moving over to the acting categories. Like you said, Marcus, a lot of people are predicting Mark Ruffalo. There's a lot of interesting possibilities here. Daniel, first of all, like, who are you predicting? Is it Mark Ruffalo, or are they going to go for one of the newer people like an Ethan Hawke in The Good Lord Bird, or Jeff Daniels in the comedy role? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't buy the Mark Ruffalo thing, which it might be stupid because I didn't buy the Mark Ruffalo thing at the Emmys since he was that show's only nomination, so it didn't seem like voters really cared about it. But I was really surprised in the end when he won that. That Emmy race felt so much like, you look at that, like maybe voters looked at that category and they're like, I guess, and gave it to Mark Ruffalo because there are so many nominees in that category who seemed like either their feature or their limited series weren't nominated or underperformed. So I don't think it's happening here for Mark Ruffalo. This is another case where I think the Golden Globes are just going to kind of move on to the new stuff. I have Ruffalo getting nominated at the moment, but I do think Ethan Hawke wins. I think we'll see The Good Lord Bird nominated, Ethan Hawke win. It's a huge scenery, chewy performance. He's a movie star doing TV, which they love. Which, I mean, Ruffalo also is, but I feel like Good Lord Bird is more recent. It's going to have more lasting buzz. It's going to be a chance to give Showtime something because the Globes like to spread the wealth to different networks a lot of times. I have him and then Hugh Grant in second place for The Undoing, although that could go either way because that's sort of like the Falls Hollywood, where like it could be awards voters' cup of tea, but like critically the reception was kind of mixed. So and then I have Ruffalo in the third, Paul Mescal, and then Jeff Daniels for the Comey Rule, which I'm not entirely confident about, but I kind of, even if the Golden Globes don't like American politics that much, I feel like so much American politics happening like right the heck now, as we're going into the nominations in a couple of weeks, that it might benefit that, or it could hurt it. They could be just like, no, enough of this, and nothing from that gets nominated. We'll see which way it goes.
So Marcus, I mean, if you are predicting Mark Ruffalo, who then do you think is?
I'm not actually.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
No. I have Ruffalo in second, but
okay.
I think there was somebody this year that gave a better performance, and I'm predicting the person who gave the best performance. And I could hear Tom yelling at me, it's never about the performance, it's about all these other factors. But Ethan Hawke in The Good Lord Bird, he blew me away. I've always liked Ethan Hawke, but now I love Ethan Hawke. He was phenomenal, and I could see something weird happen. I could see him win and his show not even get nominated because he's so much the show. So that's what I have. I don't have Good Lord Bird in series, but I have Ethan Hawke actually winning for all the reasons Daniel mentioned. I also have, I think we line up for the others. I have Ruffalo, Hugh Grant, Chris Rock, and Jeff Daniels.
The interesting thing about Ethan Hawke too in this category, and I actually have him predicted to win as well. He's coming off a major recent snub on the film side with First Reformed, which was a performance that swept through all the Critics Awards and then didn't get nominated at the Oscars. Didn't get nominated at the Golden Globes either, interestingly enough. He's only had one Golden Globe nomination to date for Boyhood, compared to his 4 Oscar nominations for acting and writing.
And this could actually be a First Reformed reunion at the Globes if Amanda Seyfried is nominated for Supporting Actress for Mank.
Right, exactly. And it's not outside the realm of possibility, we should say, for an actor, especially a big movie star, to win at the Golden Globes, even if their series is not nominated. Billy Bob Thornton in Goliath is a really good recent example of that. He was the only nomination for that show, and ended up being the only nomination that show ever got, pretty much anywhere. So yeah, I mean, Ethan Hawke could very easily win this, even if his show doesn't get in. My 5, I've got Ruffalo getting in. I've got Hugh Grant for The Undoing. I have Paul Mescal for Normal People, and I have Jeff Daniels for The Comey Rule. I feel like I should have in Hugh Jackman and Chris Rock. Although this last season of Fargo wasn't as universally acclaimed as its last 3, but they do love Fargo here. And I wouldn't count that out. Somebody else who we probably shouldn't count out here, a couple of different people. Bryan Cranston in Your Honor, Chris Evans in Defending Jacob, Jude Law in The Third Day, Nick Robinson in A Teacher, Paul Bettany in Uncle Frank, which is considered a TV movie. Recent Emmy nominee Jeremy Pope for Hollywood. There's a lot of different ways that you could make up a top 5 in this category. I'm wondering if there's anybody who you guys think has like an outside chance of upsetting here for a nomination.
Well, I was thinking about Chris Rock, putting him in there for Fargo. I think I had him in there for a certain period of time. But yeah, I just, like, this season of Fargo just didn't really make much of an imprint in terms of public discussion that I've seen. Paul Bettany maybe, Seth Rogen maybe in American Pickle if they want to give HBO Max something. I'm trying to figure out who else I can make a case for, and with the Golden Globes having such a small voting body, honestly, it could be anyone.
Chris Evans.
I'm very decisive.
Chris Evans Defending Jacob would be such a Globe nominee, like such a big movie star, and snubbed by the Emmys, and I could see them pulling him in for a nomination.
Looking over at the actress side, I mean, is there anybody who's going to beat Anya Taylor-Joy in The Queen's Gambit? I mean, what do you guys think?
I have her getting in. Shira Haas was the big talk of the town, specifically in before Queen's Gambit came out. I think Shira was predicted to win this. I'd have to look back. But once Queen's Gambit came out, I think Anya, overtook everyone's predictions, including my own. Cate Blanchett, don't count her out. Nicole Kidman, The Undoing. They love Nicole Kidman. There's a lot of possibilities. I don't think it's a done deal for Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, I've got Anya. I don't know if I'd call it a done deal, but I think it feels pretty secure to me, more so than even the other 2 movie limited categories. It's a buzzy performance. It's like a huge central role. She gets to play an alcoholic. She pops pills. Like, it's a reserved performance. It's not like a big showy performance. But Queen's Gambit is so popular, and she is such a Golden Globes choice of this up-and-coming actress who is having a big year, because she could also be nominated on the film side for the Emma adaptation from earlier in the year. So yeah, I think she's pretty secure. Nicole Kidman I have in there, but again, I'm not sure how much they're going to love The Undoing. Shira Haas I have in there, but I don't know how much love there's going to be for that following the Emmys, if that's going to be something they're really excited about, or if it's going to be one of those kinds of things that turns out to be old news for them. I think Michaela Cole gets in. I think if I Made a Story You had been a little bit more recent, like aired a little bit later in the year, that buzz might have carried over, and I'd say she'd be closer to a potential win. And then I have Cate Blanchett rounding up my top 5, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if she didn't get nominated.
Wow.
Because I mean, it's just, I remember the lead up to Mrs. America is going to be like, Cate Blanchett does TV in this showy kind of historical role, and then it happens, and then it's acclaimed. Like, critics loved the show, and it got a bunch of Emmy nominations. But then it just kind of like fizzled at the Emmys. Like it only won, like the only major category it won was for Uso Aduba.
The worst thing that happened to Mrs. America was when Watchmen decided to go limited and not drama.
Yeah.
Because I think Mrs. America would have won a lot more, including Cate Blanchett.
Cate would have won probably in a walk if it actually. I think she might have had competition from Shira. I think Shira could have been posed a threat, but I think Cate was so overwhelmingly like she's like the typical like Kate Winslet in Mildred Pierce, Julianne Moore in Game Change. It's kind of like, oh well, obviously this movie star who rarely does TV doing TV, we're gonna give him the Emmy for that. And just Watchmen was such a phenomenon; it just got in the way. But yeah, I feel like I feel like the I don't know how much enthusiasm there still is going to be for it. But Cate Blanchett is so, Cate Blanchett is Cate Blanchett. She got it for Where'd You Go, Bernadette? So, like, she'll probably get nominated, but I could also see them just looking at Mrs. America and going like, meh, moving on.
Yeah, I mean, like the two people in this category who feel like they could get nominated even if their shows don't do well are Cate Blanchett and Nicole Kidman, because the Globes love both of them and nominate them all the time. So it wouldn't surprise me if they get in, even if their shows underperform. I have Anya Taylor-Joy winning right now just because of the popularity of the Queen's Gambit, her rising star, and also because she could be double nominated this year on the film side with Emma. Shira Haas, I think, is a really strong number two, because of how acclaimed her performance was, and the fact that Unorthodox did get in for limited series at the Emmys, kind of beating out a lot of really strong competition there. I could see that show performing really well with them. I have Daisy Edgar-Jones in just because my poor heart broke when she didn't get nominated at the Emmys. I thought she was so great in that show, and I just can't understand why she was snubbed, even though Paul Mescal got in. It seems crazy to me, but I guess I'm just going to let my heart dictate that again, even though I feel like Michaela Cole is a better possibility. Looking at the other people in there, Kerry Washington and Reese Witherspoon in Little Fires Everywhere, Octavia Spencer in Self-Made.
I'm predicting Kerry in fifth place, actually. But, doesn't she feel like somebody that should have a Golden Globe? She's one of the most famous people on the planet, and she only has 2 nominations. I just checked it. She has Confirmation and Scandal, and that's it. So I do think she could get in, especially between her and Reese. I think she has a better chance.
What does Mrs. Featherbottom think, though?
She thinks Kerry will win, which is surprising.
Yeah, Kerry Washington probably of those two has the stronger chance, especially because it was kind of a surprise that the Emmys only went for one of them, and it ended up being Kerry Washington. I do give Zach a little bit of hope. I think Daisy Edgar-Jones has a real shot at a nomination. Like it's an international production, which can help at the Golden Globes given out by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, those foreigners. And like I said, I think Mrs. America could be soft. So if my hunch is right, I'm predicting Cate Blanchett to get in. But if she doesn't get in, I think that 5th slot probably is Daisy.
Thank you for giving my heart hope. I needed it after the year that this last week has been. Looking at just some of the people who round up, who have pretty good odds with us. I think don't discount Michelle Dockery in Defending Jacob, much like Chris Evans, even though that was a show that got overlooked by the Emmys. It feels like it could be a Golden Globes thing. Octavia Spencer, former Oscar winner in Self-Made, I would say has a shot at that. But I mean, otherwise, it feels like there's this really strong competition at the top, right? And then everything else is kind of a little wishy-washy. What do you guys think?
I think one who we haven't talked about yet, who I think it feels like a Globes kind of thing to do, and we keep saying that about a bunch of things because they're so weird sometimes. Just the Globes go in their own direction sometimes, and I don't think this would be a bad direction. I just think it would be something that you wouldn't necessarily expect. It would be Victoria Pedretti for Haunting of Bly Manor. I think that has a shot. I remember the first season of the Haunting kind of anthologies. She was getting a lot of attention, and it never quite materialized. And so I think now that she's back in a different role in Bly Manor, I think there's a shot. I'm not predicting at the moment, but if she got in, I would feel like I should have seen it coming.
Did we mention Kate Mara, a teacher?
We should mention her too. Yes, thank you.
Possibility. Ellie Kemper is in our top 15 for the Kimmy Schmidt movie. I don't know if the Globe voters, ever loved Kimmy Schmidt as much as I did, but I mean, she's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too because it feels much like at the Emmys when they combine those two categories. The limited series performances always outweigh the ones in the TV movies. Hugh Jackman getting nominated for Bad Education is more the exception and not the rule. But yeah, I mean, I love Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt too, even if the Golden Globe voters didn't. So
the Emmy voters liked Kimmy Schmidt way more than the Golden Globes did, and it never won a single Emmy.
I know.
It couldn't even win interactive program.
Bummer.
Well, let's talk about the supporting categories before we wrap up here. Is there the possibility of somebody from a limited series or a TV movie either winning or getting nominated here? What do you guys think?
I have Brendan Gleeson winning for the Comey role. I've had him since the day our prediction center opened. It is such an over-the-top, but in a good way, performance. He's playing Donald Trump, in case anyone doesn't know, but it's not a comedic version like Alec Baldwin. It's a very serious version full of a lot of sniffing and intimidation. And for me, that's one of the performances of the year. So I have him winning that. I also have Jim Parsons getting in for Hollywood, and John Boyega I have getting in for Small Axe.
So I have John Boyega winning for Small Axe.
Okay.
It's one of those pair up things where if I'm predicting it to win Best Limited Series, not necessarily that it needs to win an acting award, but I feel like John Boyega has gotten so much praise for this role. He's coming off of the Star Wars trilogy, where even he has come out saying that his role was underserved by that trilogy. He was out at Black Lives Matter protest in the last year, saying that I don't know if speaking out is going to ruin my career. And then he had a bunch of filmmakers tweeting back at him. It's like, no, I got you. And then he appears in this episode of Small Axe, Red, White, and Blue. It's such a big, showy performance. It's emotional. It's he plays this cop who tries to break into the color barrier of the police department and goes through all of the racism and harassment that would entail. And it's so powerful and explosive and. So I feel like if Small Axe wins, I feel like they give it an acting award, and I think this might be their best opportunity to.
My top two are John Boyega and Brendan Gleeson, and I keep switching back and forth between the two because I don't know who's going to win. And both of your compelling arguments have not made it any easier for me. On the one hand, I could see Brendan Gleeson winning because it is such a stunning bit of mimicry. Right? He really does capture Trump in a way that is not just the Saturday Night Live impersonation of him. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, by the end of February, is the whole world going to be so sick and tired of Donald Trump that they're going to want to keep rewarding him? Boyega could definitely win as that sort of Small Axe pair up, and it is so powerful. He is the lead performance of his individual film, right? Even though he's competing in the supporting category. But it's a question of do they go with do they go with the broader characterization of Brendan Gleeson, or do they go with something that's a little bit more, let's say, grounded, right? Not to say that Brendan Gleeson is over the top, but Boyega is just it's a much subtler kind of performance. It's not, there's not a lot of heavy makeup and mimicry involved. So I have a really hard time choosing between those two, but I do think that ultimately it's between those two, which is why Dan Levy will probably win.
Yeah.
How about in supporting actress? Do you guys have? Because I feel like Letitia Wright could get nominated for Small Axe. I also think Jessie Buckley could get in for Fargo.
I think her in.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Plus, I have a third from a limited series, and that's Uzo Aduba, Mrs. America. She has so many Emmys. She has so many SAG Awards. She's never won a Golden Globe. And, I really think this is Gillian Anderson's to lose. But if Gillian doesn't pull it off, I think Uzo could be the one to beat her, simply because, do the Golden Globes really want to go another year without giving Uzo Aduba a trophy?
Yeah,
I have Letitia Wright in second place under Gillian Anderson, and I also have two other limited series actresses in my predictions right now. Uzo, and the other one is, and it's a bit of a hunch, Marielle Heller for The Queen's Gambit.
I did have her for a while.
Yeah, because that if that's going to be that as popular as it could be, I think it's very possible it gets nominated beyond just the series and Anya. And Marielle Heller, as a director, directed Tom Hanks to a nomination in Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, directed Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant to nominations. I think they were both nominated at the Globes for Can You Ever Forgive Me?
Yes, yeah.
So it's, and she is so, like, people who know her mostly as a director at this point, she's so good in this role playing, Anya Taylor-Joy's adoptive mother. And there's so much attention on Anya Taylor-Joy, obviously, but there's so much, compassion and humanity in this character that that becomes really a focal point of who the Anya Taylor-Joy character becomes throughout the course of the series. So I think if it's popular enough, and I think it could be, Queen's Gambit could get another nom here.
Like you guys, I have Gillian Anderson winning. The thing that was so striking about that Uzo Aduba win was it was really a surprise. It took a lot of us by shock, because I think pretty much all of us had Gene Smart predicted to win for
I think
Watchmen.
Riley predicted Uzo Aduba.
Well, of course he did. I mean, that's just. I don't have her getting in right now, just because I don't know how popular Mrs. America is going to be overall. I could see, Mario Heller getting in as well, even though I don't have her in right now. The reason I have Jessie Buckley in over these other really strong competitors is I think it's a way of recognizing her year in both television and film, because of her role in I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which has gotten a lot of critical laudits, but I don't know if that's going to translate into a nomination for her on the film side. It could at the Globes, but I feel like this could be a way of rewarding her for both. Any last thoughts before we wrap up here?
Limited is extremely tough this year. If anyone gets all five for the series, it's going to be impressive, because there are 10, 15, 20 worthy contenders.
Yeah, there are members of the Hollywood Foreign Press who won't be able to predict all five correctly.
And they actually talk to each other too. I mean, this is going to be well, with that said, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you go to goldderby.com to make your own predictions and see if you know better than we do, which is oftentimes the case, sad to say. I don't know why they call us the experts when it's really everybody else. And we will see you all on Golden Globes Nominations Day.